First, I'll give you a little background on Energy Media. We've been around 17 years, started in Calgary, actually. And I have a background in energy transition theory. 40 years ago, when I was doing my graduate work at the University of Saskatchewan, my thesis title was The Transition from Horses and Steam to Tractors and Combines in Saskatchewan, 1900 to 1930. It was about the adoption of new technology that came in, which is the tractor and the combine, replaced horses, replaced steam engines, and the process that underwent, where the new technologies were adopted on an S curve. So if you imagine an S, and the new technologies were at the bottom of part of the S, the flat part, for a long time, and then eventually they got about 1920, they hit the inflection point, and that's that round part on the S, and they became competitive with horses and steam. And so then what happened is they very quickly became the lowest cost provider, or the lowest cost way of doing a unit of work. And off they went up the hockey stick growth. And by 1945, 1950, you couldn't find a horse or a steam engine in a field anywhere in Saskatchewan, Alberta, or Manitoba. Here's the point. The clean energy technologies that we use today, wind, solar, EVs, batteries, lithium-ion batteries, heat pumps, electrolyzers, and on, so many more, all went through exactly the same process. And they spent, solar started in the late 1970s, and wind turbines in the 80s, and lithium-ion batteries in 1991, and on and on and on. And about 2020, they all hit their inflection point where they became competitive with fossil fuel technologies, but especially oil and gas. And what that means is that if you think of the history of oil and gas, it really is about 125 years old. It never had any competition. There has never been competition for oil and the internal combustion engine, but there is now. And this is a major threat to Alberta. And a lot of my work is all about how Alberta needs to have a different conversation about energy. If you listen to Premier Daniel Smith, if you listen to the CEOs in the industry, into the Alberta business community, they have a message for you, and it is the energy future will be exactly the same as the energy past. And I'm here to tell you that is not going to be the case. And probably 2030 will be kind of our inflection point in the global energy system. The International Energy Agency says that the rapid electrification of China and other Asian economies, in Europe, other global South economies, is accelerating so much that we are actually going to reach global peak oil demand in 2029. China is going to reach peak oil demand in 2025, this year. And it's going to be flat until 2030, and then it's going to decline. And why is that important? Because the Alberta government wants to build a 1 million barrel a day pipeline to Prince Rupert to sell into China. Bad idea. And so the way we need to change the conversation in Alberta is we need to recognize that the global energy system is changing. And Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, said it best. He said 6 or 8 months ago, the age of oil is over. The age of electricity has begun. And what Alberta has to do is recognize that it is very quickly going to be facing declining demand for its main products, oil and gas, and it needs to come up with it has to adapt. And there are ways to do that. We could talk about that later tonight, but we need to change the way we have the conversation, because in Alberta, all we talk about is that oil and gas will go on and on and on forever. You get outside North America, into Asia, into Europe, even parts of the United States where we interview experts, very different conversation. They're all about electrifying. And Alberta has to get with the times. It has to adapt very quickly, or the prosperity that Alberta has enjoyed for decades is going to be in peril.